Okay. All right. Should be recording. Hi, everyone, both in YouTube land and here. That's June 5, 2026. We're going to go over the procedures and how to run a stream monitoring event with MyCore. And my name's Paul Steen, aquatic ecologist with the Huron River Watershed Council and MyCore. And first of all, let's just talk about what MyCore is. The Michigan Clean Water Corps. This was started in 2004, 2005 is kind of when it really kicked off and became operational. Started because of an executive order from the governor at the time who wanted to put multiple things that then DEQ, now Eagle, is doing kind of like into the same umbrella. And that included, and a big part of that is always involving the public. Like, this isn't just something that their staff was going to do, right? This is actively engaging Michigan citizens. So these are the three like core aspects of what MyCore is. There's a lakes monitoring program, which if any of you aren't involved in and have anything to do with a lake, this is a great one to get involved in too. We have, of course, our stream program that we're talking about today. We also have this volunteer stream cleanup program, which is another great one to get involved in, especially if you're already doing this and you're with a conservation district, which is three of you here. uh, nonprofits can't nonprofits can't apply for these volunteer stream cleanup program monies. It's municipalities and conservation districts aren't considered included in that. Um, right. So this is actually like taking trash out of the river as compared to monitoring. So it's more of like a hands-on project, getting wet in the river. With the stream program, of course, we're you guys already know this because you're involved to some degree already. We're looking at the aquatic life in the river, specifically benthic macroinvertebrates, BMIs, aquatic insects. I may call them bugs accidentally throughout, but you know what I'm talking about. It's our critters that live in the stream that do not have a backbone. So we don't look at fish. We also don't look at fresh water native mussels because those are heavily permitted and it's illegal to take them out unless you have one of those permits. But anyone can work with the bugs, and so it's from like a permitting standpoint, it's easy to get involved, and they tell us interesting things about the river. We monitor these because at a very general level, the more that we find, the healthier the habitat, the healthier the water quality of a stream. So if you monitor them long term over the course of many, many years, you get a very good sense of both the biological community and the water quality at a spot. And then you can track it to see if the water quality is changing. It's easier and cheaper to do than, and more kind of integrated than individual like phosphorus or sediment sampling that you might do. If something, I guess the best way of saying it, because you guys will have to explain a slide like this over and over again, like 1,000 times when you work with volunteers. The best way to explain it is if they're older, the canary in the coal mine. Like, these are the canaries in the coal mine that tell you when the environment is going bad. You can also explain it as these creatures live in the water all the time. So they have to deal with everything the water deals with: high flows, low flows. After, man, my Teams is exploding. Turn these guys off. Um, after yeah, high flows, low flows. After it rains and you get a plug of sediment coming down the river, or a plug of nutrients. These creatures have to live here. So if they can stay there, it says something about the stream. And typically stuff like stoneflies, mayflies, some of these creatures are more sensitive and they'll drop out quicker based on how bad the water quality is. So knowing what is there can inform you a lot about the water quality. Who's been involved? You can't, don't expect you to read all this, but this is a list of 64 organizations that across Michigan that have been involved with MyCore. All of your organizations are now on the list. Some of you guys, maybe you didn't even know, Cass County, 2015. Cass County attempted this in 2015 and never really got it launched, but they did get a startup grant. Now
we thought there was like a we like have a bunch of new employees, and we saw there was like a thing on the wall that said we were like, oh,
wait a minute. Yeah, you had one of those plaques. Yeah, I mean, staff's turnover. Yeah. Some groups, like Tip of the Mitt, have been doing this continually since 2005. Some groups kind of come and go, start, restop. But the gist of it is through time, about 50% of the organizations that start this are managed to keep it going. Jackson County's been doing this for a long time. They got a grant. That's who Colton's with. They got a grant in 2009, I think. I worked with Jackson County when I just started here, like way back in the day.
That was Lori, right?
It was with Cecilia.
Oh,
Does her name? Do you know who that is?
Yep.
Okay.
She moved back.
Yeah. Yeah. She's the one that started it, Cecilia. That's who I worked most directly with. But their group has kind of, at least at some level, sometimes more, sometimes less, have kept their monitoring going. So altogether, 50% of the groups managed to pull this off. But MyCore is training you. MyCore is setting the stage for you. MyCore will continue to provide you resources in terms of like education and on occasion a grant. But for the most part, like once you get through your initial grant, it's kind of up to each organization to keep themselves going. Like we just cannot give enough money to keep everyone operational. So like when you get into this, know this, like this then becomes a job of finding the funding to keep it going, right? Speaking of that, what kind of funding have we given out? You can see the spread here. It's about $75,000 a year that goes to the MyCore Stream grants. Total, we're getting very close to $1 million since 2005. So it's not a lot of money given out every year, but it's often enough to keep groups kind of like hobbling along with a little bit of support. And obviously, none of this fully supports you. Where have we sampled? Let's see. So this is a map I made for last year's training. I did not update it this year, but this is all the places across the state. You can see like, Southeast Michigan has many active groups for a long time. So that's why you get the densest area down here. But these dots have been spreading, over the last 20 years, going to more and more places. And on average, I mean, just the dots kind of undersell what we've done, because on average, each of one of these dots has an additional 15 dots associated with it for all of the samples that they've done. Some more than that, some less, obviously. So we're getting to many, many places with our 35 groups across the state. And all of that data then goes to our online database. Becomes available to Eagle biologists and anyone else who's interested, researchers, anyone else who's interested in what we find. Though the best and ultimate user of the data is your own organizations to guide your management decisions. It's nice that we're producing this for Eagle, but I think like you'll always know your data the best and know what it's saying the best if you spend time with it.
And have the ability to make change.
Yeah. I mean, just because you find a bad site doesn't mean you can necessarily fix it. Okay, so any questions on that so far? All right. So I thought various ways to teach how to do this, and what I decided that what I like to do is take it from a chronological point of view, from like multiple months out. Essentially, if you're starting a brand new program right now, like Elizabeth is doing, like multiple months out from your first sample point, what are the things that you should be worrying about? And then walk us chronologically to where we're actually sampling, where we'll talk about the procedures. And then beyond that, getting the data and what we do with the data. So, you know, obviously in each one of those, there's a depth of things to talk about. But we'll start at the beginning. And that, honestly, is if you're brand new to this, there's nothing more valuable than just seeing how other people do it. Get to 2 or 3 organizations this fall if you can. A lot of times they work on weekends, so maybe it's fine, you know, if you only can get one. But seeing how people run it, seeing how they work their volunteers, how they get their volunteers, making connections personally with those professionals so that you have someone local that you can bounce ideas off of. That's all really useful. You know, we're basically all doing the same thing. So the point of one of the main points of MyCore is that we now have this network of people that are our colleagues that we can talk to and feed off of. So definitely get out and see how other groups do it, just as a normal volunteer.
Do each of you know?
Number 2, and then we're going to talk more about each of these. Pick your sample sites. Pick when your event is going to happen. Find your volunteers. Buy equipment. Cover each, at least number 2, we're going to cover in great detail here. Okay, so talking about picking your sample sites. Jackson County is well established. Okay, let's greet everybody.
I didn't adjust the time zone.
Oh,
Because we're in central.
yeah.
So
I've done that before going up. So.
Oh, so you show up early.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the guy looked at me and was like,
So I'm Jen. I'm with Aaron Garriga.
Ron, welcome you guys. This is a name tag for you.
Okay.
And the pink slip is for your card on your dashboard, just to make sure that everything's fine with the owners of the building here. So you can get all that settled. If you have to use the bathroom, this is bathroom code or right outside in the hallway. And yep, come on in when you're ready. All right, well, I guess we'll just wait a second. Well, we'll talk about this. Colton, Colton's group is well established. They've been operating a long time. They have their sample sites. Ottawa County, Tracy, you basically started essentially you guys started 3 years ago, but I don't think you've been fully operational. That's how I think.
Yeah, I think that's part of the time because we've been doing other sampling and
Yep.
yeah, because we're doing the monitoring as well from our county. So
Yep.
Yep.
Elizabeth, you guys are brand new. Have you picked sample sites yet? You have a pretty good sense already.
Mostly, we just need to get permission.
Yeah. And then Nick, do you have any idea if you guys have picked where you want to go yet?
Yes, we did.
You did. Okay. All right. Jen, how about you? Did you know where you're headed when you do your monitoring? Okay.
We've picked mostly public access areas.
Oftentimes it's so I'm going to show you what would be an ideal situation if you could just go anywhere you want, in terms of the biology. But oftentimes we're restricted to where we have permission to get into public access sites, where it's shallow enough, right? If I was just to pick a perfect sample design, this is what I would do, where you pick your end point of whatever your primary watershed is that you're interested in, and you want a sample site close to the end. Like this essentially integrates all the effects that the biological population is going to see. So you want to get a downstream point that's kind of like your primary endpoint if you can. From there, I work my way up river systems and look for major incoming tributaries. At this point here at 2, you can see like 4, if you trace it up, you can see each of these is kind of indicative of a major incoming branch to this river. And then you can trace each of those up then further and get other like secondary or tertiary sites that are going to be smaller, with the idea that if there's a problem in any of these locations, by looking at all your data at the same time, you can have a pretty good sense of where it's originating. Reality is harder, obviously, because you can't just go to anywhere you want, but the hope is that we can use our data to do this type of thing, like essentially inform problematic stream branches, so that you're more able to understand what's causing these issues, and then hopefully be able to do something about it. So this is like what I recommend. If you can, look at your sample sites, see if it at least kind of gets to at least the themes that I'm expressing here, even if you can't fully be able to move them wherever you want. But something that's not helpful just in terms of a data analysis is if you have 2 places that are just like really close to each other, they're essentially going to be telling you the same thing. So you want to get your sites divided in space so that you're not oversampling and spending too much time sending volunteers out and just essentially collecting duplicate data. It's not useful.
If you wanted,
Okay, when is your event going to happen? So my core groups monitor twice a year. We monitor in the fall, we monitor in the spring. When exactly the sampling happens is kind of up to each group. Typically, everyone monitors late September through early October, from in the fall. We all generally have the same kind of weather, though UP weather tends to starting to get cold by that point. In the spring, there's this huge variety, just because all of us have such different springs. In this area of the state, my monitoring happens somewhere around April 20-ish. But people going into May is entirely normal for this area of the state. If you're in northern Michigan, you're probably sampling in late May to early June, like right about now, if you were in the upper peninsula. What you want to make sure you just do in the spring is that you are sampling before the mayflies and the caddisflies are really starting to emerge a lot, right? You want to beat that hatch. So you can kind of pick that timing based on where you talk to your fly fishermen, where you are. So we want to beat that, because if all our aquatic insects are turning terrestrial, we're not going to find them in the river anymore. You might find adults, but we don't collect adults. Be warned. I think in our world of climate change, this is happening more and more in the spring. Like spring samples are just flooded out so often. Actually, this spring, we canceled our event altogether this spring because we had like 3 weeks of super high rain. It was just dangerous. And even if we had sent people out, they wouldn't have been able to get in the water and wouldn't have been able to collect any kind of representative sample. So just be warned that this will happen to you too. And we just may be canceling events or delay. You can't delay it too long. And so this is a reason here on the bottom. You should be sticking, once you decide what your sampling window is, you need to kind of stick to it. So there's a 2-week window in which you want to anchor your sampling around, just so that year to year to year to year, you're always sampling approximately the same time of year.
out of curiosity, this spring, our area, which was the areas of the river that we were going to sample, we were declared a national disaster zone and it got nailed. How long after severe flooding like that, where it's like ripping roads apart and everything else,
Yeah.
would you give as a buffer if you were still going to try to complete sampling? Or is that all?
I would have canceled it if I was you in this situation, because you have to stick to this 2 week window, otherwise your data's just not even comparable to the data from the previous year anyway.
Okay.
Because at this point you might be monitoring after a bunch of insects have emerged, like we talked about. So you can always do those samples. Just know that you can't really stick them on the same graph anymore, like with your old samples, right? They'd be their own thing.
Okay.
In your situation, yeah, that's right. I certainly saw the pictures of all the roads being washed away.
I didn't know that in the UP. I knew that in northern Michigan, but I didn't know the UP had similar.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because we applied for the stream monitoring grant, but we also applied for stream cleanup. And unfortunately, the waterways that I picked are the ones that were most affected.
Oh,
So
so you have a lot of work to do.
yeah, we're wondering just how much trash we're gonna pull out of the river.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it'll be it's unique.
Okay, so you'll have a time frame that you're doing your monitoring. So now we're at the point, if you're 1 to 3 weeks out before the event. I didn't really talk about recruiting volunteers, but you were already in this. Like at this, basically, as soon as you know you want to start a program is when you want to start trying to find people who are going to be interested in helping you. I would say 3 weeks out is when you're actively trying to get people on your list that are going to show up on the day of. And that's also the point about 2 to 3 weeks out is when you want to hold a training for your volunteers. Now, you don't need to train everybody. I think this is important. Essentially, each of you are going to have some type of cadre, hopefully, of like high performing, high energy people who are really into this, that really want to get involved. And those are the people that you turn into your collectors and your team leaders. Hopefully you can find that or develop it over time. Those are the people you want to train up. Because if you set them as your collector, you don't want the first time that they've actually done this collection to be during the first monitoring event. They need to practice a little, just like you'll practice a little today out in the river. They need to practice too. You want to, and at this point, you're training your own volunteers. You have to go over the procedures that we're going to learn today, show them the different microhabitats in a river so that they're able to identify them themselves, know where to sample when they get in the river. They should be practicing the official procedures. Now, in my experience here in Ann Arbor by the University of Michigan, I often get a volunteer coming in saying, I've done this a lot. I'm actually an expert at this. I took a class. I'm happy to help, but I don't really need any training because I know what I'm doing. And I always say something along this lines. We'd love to have you. We're so happy to have people with experience. People already know how to walk in a river. That's always very useful. But you still have to come to the training because our protocol is probably going to be different than anything else that you've ever done. So feel free to blame my course. Say you're obligated to stick to these statewide procedures, and we want to make sure that our way of doing it is matches the way that the state has directed us to do it. However, you don't need to, on the bottom here, you don't need to train every single person who comes through your doors. If all their job is going to be is like an 8-year-old kid, sitting on the bank picking bugs out of the white tray, don't subject them to an extra Saturday training. Just give them a 10-minute introduction with the group when everyone gathers, and they'll be good to go. They can learn by doing, and that's how you can get the families to participate. Hopefully you'll be able to win a parent over to maybe becoming a collector someday if their kid is really into it. Maybe that kid will eventually be a collector for you when they're, a teenager. But at least initially, to not put any unneeded barriers between people participating and in a training, right? Like get better participation by just lowering any barrier that you can think of that someone can just jump in and help out.
Paul, could I ask,
Yeah.
what is, do you have an average number of volunteers that we're looking for? I'm sure
Yep.
it depends on the sites and everything. but-
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I would say like, well, often it does depend on how you do the collecting and the picking and groups. Each group kind of does it their own way, and we're going to talk about some of those
Okay.
different ways. But like for the way my group does it, like if a team of 4 to 5 people would be like the best size for the way my group does it, which is being on the bank, picking stuff right there on the bank. Some groups kind of take all their stuff and like go to a second location, and then you don't need that many.
Out of curiosity, with the multiple sampling sites,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see this happening by us, but if you had a group of people that was large, say like 30 people, and you had, your multiple sampling sites, have you ever sent groups to each one?
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice any difference in the quality of data you get based off of that? Or do you try to send that same lead to that same site at the same time?
I think I'm gonna address all of those things. If I don't,
Okay.
ask me again. But a lot of that is kind of the nuances that we're gonna get into. And here's kind of the first one. So this is really like the first major option that groups have. You can try to do all your monitoring on a single Saturday. Just get it all done. You get the group all together. You either beforehand have already decided who's in what team and where they're gonna go, but you bring them all together. You give them their equipment. You send them out, and each team of 4 or 5 is going to a location doing the monitoring. I usually send each team of 4 or 5 to 2 locations. The reason for that is that once, if they just went to one location, they're probably done. You only actually need to be at the river for an hour. With the travel time, maybe they're out there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So send them to another site that's close by, so you minimize the travel time. But then they're doing the whole process twice. That takes about a half a day, depending, I guess, on how far they have to go. If you start sending them to 3 locations, people will get antsy. It just starts becoming a lot, and it's a harder sell to say, hey, so give me your entire Saturday. If you can say, give me 4 or 5 or 6 hours of your Saturday, that's a lot more doable for people. But they'll have stuff they want to do in the afternoon or in the evening. So anyway, this is what HRWC does. My group here. This requires more equipment. Obviously, you need to have all the equipment ready to go, and you send all the equipment out with all the teams. Now, where you pick the bugs is kind of up to you. The team can do it right there on the site, right on the stream bank. Or if I wanted to, I could have everyone come back to the office, like sit around where we're sitting right now with trays, with buckets, and do the picking like directly from buckets. We have the teams just pick right on location there. Now, some people do it this method. Let's say you have 10 sites, but you only have 30 volunteers. It's hard to use that first model. So maybe what you need to do is to stretch it out over the course of a week. A team, you gather a team up, and based on their availability, they go out on a Monday. And then another team maybe goes out on Wednesday afternoon, and then another team goes out on Saturday morning. So all told, you're getting all the monitoring done. But you might have more involved people be on several of those teams. You might be on several of those teams yourself if you don't get enough volunteers. So this is an option. Some groups, I think there's only one group in the state that I know of that runs it this way. It's like more of an adopt a stream model where like a set group of people, this is kind of their site, and this is the site they always do. That's a little dangerous from a data quality perspective. So I don't recommend you try to launch into that kind of model. It does give you people who really care about particular locations, which is good. But then if they're always bad collectors, the data will always be bad, right, from that site. And you actually have to be intentional about sending other people there sometimes to do a data check. And then that group tends to get mad that someone else is at their location. So it's better kind of not even start with that model. Just say no particular group is owning any particular site. We're all going to know all the sites together. We care about the entire watershed, not just particular locations. Any questions on that? Maybe you guys are starting to envision how you might want to run that. Yeah, Colton?
So we had last spring, not this previous spring, we had like 15 volunteers. We only had 2 staff. So what we ended up doing was we split into 3 groups, and Renee led one of them.
Yep.
Is that typical? Like, do you have like a bunch of volunteers and very limited staff, and we just can't afford to do it over multiple days?
Yeah. It drags everything out.
Right. But my issue that I was having is the other staff person isn't really trained. So this resource is all going to be online for the new one.
Yes. In that situation, go out with that staff person individually maybe, or with other leaders that you can pull together and just hold a group training. Let's make sure we're all on the same page and doing this properly. It's never too late to, actually I suggest at least once a year doing like this of a leader training so everyone is on the same page with each other. Yeah, Lauren?
So maybe you're going to get into this later, but what would our role be during like a collection day? Would
Yep.
we be a collector too, or would we just be like there trying to see if like other collectors have issues?
Yep.
Need our help with something?
Yep. It totally depends on, I guess, what the need is. Sounds like Colton has to go out with a group because they need the people to lead the group, and maybe that will be your situation. I think the longer you do this and the more people you're able to collect as volunteers, you'll be more of a manager and less of an actual doer. So when we do our monitoring event, I basically sit in this building and wait for people to come back.
Okay.
We send out maybe 15 teams. We all gather here in the morning. We talk to everybody. We give the newbies instructions, like the quick instructions. The leaders, we have like at least one, maybe 2 if we're lucky, like known leader for each team. And they have already been trained. Some of them are like long-term volunteers who've done it a lot. They take all the newbies and go out to their site. And then they just kind of start trickling back, and we greet them, we ask them how it went, we glance quickly at their bugs because we don't actually do the ID yet. And then they're done for the day. So that's kind of my role. However, as you start, you may only get 5 or 6 people to even help you on your first event. So then you're looking at probably going out with every single team. And honestly, that's a totally fine way to start it. The hope would be that over time you're becoming more of a manager and less of a doer yourself. Yep.
I think our situation is similar to Colton's, that we'll have to have multiple team leaders. However, I think we have recruited a volunteer from the VSMP from the Watershed Center in Traverse City. It's already trained up.
Yep.
Is that a suitable person to lead?
Probably yes. That person would definitely be suitable, experience. You may want to get them to come to your own training, and you could sell it as like, be my backup here and give us a different perspective than the one I'm bringing.
Sure.
As long as that person's got the right personality, right? It doesn't try to take over.
Yeah.
But yeah, leverage your expertise for, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so now it's the day of the event. Either you gathered everyone and you sent them out, or maybe you're out there with them yourself. I mean, maybe you're the collector, though I would try to just from building people's expertise. As soon as you can, try to get other people to do the collecting for you. That will get them more invested. You can be on the bank, like helping the new people do the picking of the insects. That would be a better model. So this is a very, I mean, my core procedures are not complicated, but this is the way everyone in the state does it. All right, you go into wadable water. Anything that consistently threatens to overtop waders is not wadable. And you're sampling in an upstream direction for 35 to 45 minutes, like net in water. And you're also, at the same time, you're covering 300 feet. So this is a trick for volunteers until they get some experience to see how it works. Like they need to keep moving at a certain speed to both get that 300-foot section done, but also do it in the time limit. If you have two collectors, some people do this. I want two collectors. I want one person on this side of the river and I want one person on that side of the river. That's fine, but combined, it still should be 35 to 45 minutes. So maybe then each person's doing it for 20 minutes, in which case they need to move a lot faster to get up the 300-foot stream section. And the reason you're working upstream is that you're always headed toward clean water. Now, if you're in a fast-flowing stream, this wouldn't be an issue, even if you're going downstream. But if you're in any kind of mucky situation, having everything clouded up because you're stirring up the sediment just makes it harder on you. So you're always moving upstream toward nice clean water. And then that collector, when they're doing this, is bouncing between all of these different microhabitats. So this is something that you want to train people's eye to read a river. What are the different pieces of the stream ecology here? Riffles and pools and cobbles, the water is flowing differently in all of these situations, which means you'll have different sorts of insects that live in these situations. Riffles and cobbles, the water is typically going to be flowing faster. You'll have You'll have aquatic insects that need to be more well oxygenated in those situations. Mayflies, stoneflies are going to tend to be found in riffles and cobbles. Pools will tend to have insects that can handle lower oxygen levels. Maybe they're actually breathing direct atmospheric air, like true bugs. This would be where I would expect to find damselflies. You'll have some of the best habitat you'll get will be right up against the banks, where there's overhanging vegetation or overhanging stream banks, places for the insects to hide in. Woody debris, here's a good picture of woody debris. The longer the woody debris is in the river, the better the insect habitat is. Have them use their net to scrape the ins and outs of all these places. Wherever the stream looks different, that's where you have a chance to find something new. I am sure to tell people, don't count on your net alone. Like, the net is great, but you can find just as much stuff reaching in there with your hands, grabbing leaf packs, that tend to collect in the fall. And honestly, you'll still find them in the spring. They'll be all rotting out, and that's like the best insect habitat. So just reach in there and grab with your hands, pull out large rocks, especially in fast-flowing water. Insects need something to hold on to. Not just going to be, remind them that these things are not just swimming around in the open water. They're always holding on to something. So you're always shaking something loose or scraping or grabbing big things, big logs, looking under bark. If they do all of that, they will have better luck in getting a full diversity of what's going on here. All right, I guess I just talked about all this. Shuffling, pulling, scraping, dragging, grabbing with hands. I forgot to do it today. I like to do it, but I forgot. I'm sorry, Tamara. I like to give people a soft bristled brush.
I forgot to bring some too.
Yeah. Because, for example, you'll come across this like big log, and then you can maybe pull it out a little bit, but it's not like you're gonna hoist this huge trunk over to the side of the river. So like you use a brush to kind of to put the move the insects directly into a bucket if you're collecting into a bucket or into your net. So that's just a good thing to kind of have like connected to your waders. Yeah.
When you say soft bristle brush, do you mean like a toothbrush or one of those scrubby things?
A scrubby thing. Yeah, toothbrush is too small of a surface area.
Okay.
So like something that maybe you would clean your shower with, but not something really hard bristles that will just destroy all the insects, right? Nice gentle.
The ones we have at Eagle are pretty hard.
Are they? Does that kill everything?
No. I mean, because you're dislodging stuff
Yeah.
more than anything else
Okay.
for like the big logs and stuff. So they're like, usually from Home Depot, they're like, have really long handles on them, and the brush itself is about that big. And like, especially in northern streams where there's mostly sand, the wood is so important for habitat. And so like the big logs and stuff, you just gently, you're not cleaning off the mold of your shower. You just gently are like
Persuading.
dislodging things from algae or from the bark on the logs that are in the tree. You're just kind of like pushing things out. Like that's how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And this gets to the way different people do it. Today we're gonna do this bucket method where I'm actually gonna have you guys in pairs. One person's kind of gonna hold this bucket for the other person to sample, and then put what you find directly into like a 5-gallon bucket. That way the two people are just like walking along together in the river. In a big river, that's probably a better situation. In a small little creek, it's not a big deal for the collector to just take a sample with their net and immediately like dump that net into a white tray for the volunteers on the bank to start picking through. All right, so you can kind of base your procedures that you pick on kind of what works well for your group.
I find that every time I give a volunteer, a collector, a bucket, it is just loaded
Yes.
with dirt. Every time I tell them, make sure that you're sifting through and not getting that dirt. So my idea for the next collection is just to get extra nets and have the collector give their whole net to the pickers,
Okay.
and then like swap out with the fresh net,
That's
because
a good
I
idea.
The
am
bucket,
so
what you
sick
do
of-
not like the bucket method.
No, I don't. I want to get away from
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, a big massive clump of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. Well, that's probably the reason I prefer having people immediately start picking on the side. If you come back to a central location with a bucket of stuff, it takes a long time to go through it. And especially if it's a mucky stream, this is my bottom alliteration here. Like muck is the worst thing to sample, and then if an unexperienced collector will get a massive blob of dark sediment, and I mean honestly, you're not even going to find. It's going to make everything so cloudy when you're trying to sort through it that you visually aren't going to see it. Plus, there's not going to be much living in there anyway. So we can talk about when we get outside ways to like kind of clean the sample before it goes up to the volunteers to look through it.
Last time we were there for like an extra 45 minutes after the collectors were out of the water, just trying to pick through the rest of the mess.
Okay.
I gotta do something to fix it.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that you can do to think about this, which maybe is getting into the picking part of it. I want groups. Okay, so however you do the picking, so that here you can see my one of my teams doing a stream side picking, where they're picking from white trays. The collector has essentially, sampled in 3 or 4 places, filled up their net with, not filled up with their net, have stuff in their net, small amount of stuff, and that immediately gets dumped into one of these white trays, and now the people are sitting on the bank going through that looking for insects. I feel like even from this distance, it's a high quality photo. That's too much. That guy's looking through too much stuff. Like the first thing I would do is like cut that in by a third. Also, get some water in that tray, buddy. you need water in the tray to get things swimming. So I would take a squirt bottle, like get things swimming. This would be a more standard look. Though the first thing I would do in this situation, if I was this picker, is I'd immediately look at this big rock, pick everything off that I can, throw the rock back in the river. So you're trying to limit what each person has to deal with in their tray. Now, my group hasn't done this, though if I was to start fresh and new, I would. And that's don't use trays this size, but use big white trays, like the kind that you put on the refrigerator in case they leak. Or if a free like a go to a refrigerator or freezer store and see if they sell these massive white trays, because I think those are much easier to pick on, and you can get like 2 or 3 people kind of gathered around them.
If you did have small trays like that, this is where I think a bucket would be handy, because you could put everything in the bucket and then use like a aquarium net and just get tiny amounts out
Yeah,
at a
little
time.
scoops.
That's what we do, because we do a little bit more quantitative one. So we stir up the bucket, make sure the bucket's all stirred, and then we take an aquarium net, and then we are like we committed to picking every single thing in that aquarium scoop that we
Yep.
do. But that's just that in this situation, that's what I would do. I've also seen people with tables nowadays. You can buy the folding tables that are pretty cheap,
Mhm.
and then people don't have to sit on buckets in those big trays. They don't have to be. I mean, kids are like to lean over. I don't like to
Right,
lean
right.
over
This
anymore.
would be a harder
I get
situation.
why they're doing that, but
I'd prefer just to lie on my stomach probably in this situation than sit they hunched over on a bucket. To each their own. They are actively putting what they are finding into this little jar here. This jar is full of 70% ethanol. Not full. It's half full. Notice it already has a label in there. Um, so they do that for about 60 minutes. 60 minutes is our expectation for how long the pickers will pick through the sample. So Colton, you might have been able to. So don't worry about necessarily. Eagle does things a little more quantitatively, and we don't. We're more of a time based. So like, if you feel that they've already hit 100 insects, and that they've done a good job of picking different types of insects, you don't have to make them say, "Oh, we need to get through every single thing the person picked out of the river." Uh, but on a time based method, say we're going to stop after 60 minutes of active picking. All right. The goal is to get 100. If you get less than 60, that automatically gives the stream a bad score. Some places you'll go to, you'll do the procedure 100% correct. You'll 40 minutes worth of collecting, 60 minutes worth of a team of 4 people all picking. This isn't 60 minutes total, by the way. This is 60 minutes for your entire team. So, like, if you have 4 or 5 or 6 people, they're all spending 60 minutes picking. Um, you still might come in a bad stream. You still might not even find 60. You might have 40 or 50, and that's just as good as that stream can do, and that's fine. But that's why you keep looking. If it's a low abundant stream, you just keep looking for that 60 minutes. Your team does not need to count the bugs, but it certainly is an option that you can give them if they kind of prove themselves historically to always come back with low samples. If you have a team of 3 people, you absolutely could all count 1, 2, 3, 4 as a team and put stuff in the jar. I find I give each team 2 jars. If they can fill both of those jars up halfway or even a fourth of a way, they'll have 100 bugs. So that's what I tell the leaders. Like, don't worry about counting them. Just do a good job filling up your jars, and you'll have 100 easily. And then oftentimes they come back with somewhere in the realm of 150 to 200, which is totally doable. If they start coming back with 300 plus, they might be. That usually doesn't happen unless you get like a really big team. If you have a team of 10 people that you're sending out, just because maybe a lot of them are little kids and they're with their parents, and then you have friends that want to go out together, and suddenly you have a team of 10 people, it's fine to start restricting them either in their time limit or say don't do more than fill up these 2 jars. Otherwise they'll come back with like 200 scuds, you know. So to some point you have to limit what they do, but this is kind of the rule of thumb to get generally in the right place in terms of the amount that you actually want them to come back with.
Got another question. For individual species, because we find 50 scuds in every single scoop.
Yep.
I don't know why, but they're so popular.
Yeah.
When do you stop counting individual species?
Yep. What I would do is, this is where it really helps to have an experienced person out with them to give them these directions while they're in the midst of it. You know, say, we've already gotten, I would probably stop. After they've collected 20 of them, I would probably say, okay, let's look for other things.
Exactly what I did last time.
Okay.
Great to
Yeah.
hear.
That's right. Because you've essentially already established that they're extremely common here. Collecting more is not going to give you more information. Say, let's look for other things. Especially the smaller things. Scuds are pretty unique in terms, and it's just a scud. It's not like it's going to be different family taxa. A scud is a scud, more or less. But a lot of the mayflies and caddisflies may actually be different things, but look the same. And so I'll say to them, you know, if after you collected 20, 25 of the same thing, look for other things, but keep looking for that whole 60 minutes. And if there's any doubt at all that this could possibly be something else, please keep it. Because our overall goal is to understand the full diversity of the community, like all the different types. We want to see all the different types. So you don't really want to stop them and then have them miss something new, right? So have them keep looking no matter what they have found. Have them keep looking for that 60 minutes, just in case they find something new. And then when it's really small, to err on the side of collecting too many rather than not collecting enough. But scuds are kind of their own unique thing because they're very distinct and you can learn them pretty quick. So it's fine, and especially for scuds, to kind of cut it off. The other one would be hydrocycid caddisflies, at least in my area of the state. Like, those are my scuds. They're these net spinning green caddisflies. They're everywhere. And so if we're not careful, people could come back with 100 of them.
I think damselflies, the more I go out with volunteers, the more I'm seeing, like, there's only two families of damselflies in the state, and they're big and they're kind of cool looking, and people will just collect and collect and collect.
Yeah, they're like
and
this.
they're not getting any more information.
Yeah.
So that's another one that I've just started. Scuds are
Realizing.
I've really noticed, but damselflies are the other ones, they just love them.
I mean, I'd say collecting is more controllable. You typically have 1 or 2 people doing it. You're on a specific timeline. They have a specific area they're trying to cover. Picking is a lot more of an art, I think, because you're dealing with a variety of different ages, different group sizes. But if you can work at getting 100 to 150, you'll get consistent, good samples. And as long as you keep reminding them, please, look in different places. Different sizes. Don't just pick out the ones that are flashy and look the coolest. You get the tiniest ones too. Suddenly my presentation went wonky. Okay, so we now have our insects in our jars. Some requirements from MyCort. We require that you euthanize the specimens, so they're going into ethanol, preferably isopropanol, maybe. Ethanol's better, just so you know. It's more expensive, but it makes the insects less brittle. They tend to fall apart in isopropanol, just to be aware. Now, the ID actually occurs in a controlled environment, not on the riverbank. Each team is going to need some type of volunteer expert, or perhaps you are going to be learning learning the ID yourself, and you'll be the expert for your team. That's fine. And that person's the one that ultimately needs to look at every sample and put their seal of approval. You can have volunteers identify things, but their IDs are never the final word. They'll make tons of mistakes until they get some experience. Keep your samples for 5 years in case questions arise. After that, if you have the relationship or can build a relationship, donate it to a museum. If you don't have that, it's fine to discard them. However, that being said, volunteers are super, super important in the ID process because these things can be so time consuming to go through. So what you want to do is pull them together for an evening or a Saturday morning or something, give them a sample and have them separate all the specimens. They can put things in look-alike groups so that the ID expert only needs to identify a group of things. They'll make lots of mistakes in grouping things. So first, the ID expert would have to maybe re-separate things to be in the proper groups. Then they can just identify them. And then the volunteer can then go through each of those groups and actually count. So the ID expert doesn't have to count 150 scuds. They just identify the group as a scuds, and then the volunteer is the one that actually does the counting and puts things back in the jar. Happy to have some of you live too far away, but if anyone wanted to come to an October ID day to see how we do it here, you can get a sense of the process. But here's all our each volunteer going through one of these samples, picking things out, they put them in these. You could use ice cube trays, but we just happen to get these Petri dishes, 6-celled Petri dishes, separate things out. And then what you don't see is me kind of like hovering over their shoulder, ready to, when they're done, swoop in there and identify everything for them. And then they count it and put it back in the jar. So then we have our filled out data sheet. Now you don't want to do this the same day as collecting things. In my opinion, it takes too long and people will get burnt out. So do it a different day. They already had a big day of collecting. Don't make them do the ID part, the sorting part on the same day. Okay, so here's some things to be aware of. Tamara did it was for a MyCore conference, and that now exists as a YouTube that you could watch to understand the breakdown of macroinvertebrates and the different characters that define each one. Macroinvertebrates.org is a really good website because you can zoom in on any high resolution photos that you can zoom in on. We have a few things on the MyCore website under our Stream Docs section that will help you get better at ID. But I think the most important thing to realize is that getting good at this takes time and effort and repetition. It's like if you have birder friends, I'm not a birder, but I have birder friends, and I'm like, how do they know exactly what that bird is? Like 100 feet in the air, flying away. And, they got there because they spent 5 years working at it, right? It's the same thing, but I don't think insects are as hard as birds, personally. Maybe because they're not flying away from you. But I would say it would take you probably 3 years of good effort to feel confident. Maybe a year, if you're only identifying at the order level, maybe a year of consistent effort to get good at the order level of insect identification. But if you want to get to the point where you're identifying things at a family level, 3 to 5 years of consistent effort and individual study to get good at insect ID, which is why if you can't do that yourself, that's why you look for a volunteer who already has those skills, right? And there's people out there. You might even be able to get your eagle biologist to come and volunteer for you.
Yeah, and we're gonna have training. Remember?
Oh yeah, at the MyCore conference, we're definitely going to cover something. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're gonna have some kind of, but you guys could help, maybe, I don't know, if Paul's okay with this, we could help form what that training
Yeah.
looks like so at the micro conference, it's gonna be November 4th and 5th, and the 4th, we're gonna have like a workshop, 2 to 3 hour workshop on macroinvertebrate ID of some kind. And if there's like particular groups you wanna cover or things like that, you could email Paul and I, and we'll take that into consideration because I don't want to just repeat what we have up on the YouTube
Right, right.
thing, so we can make it what you want.
Yep. Be aware that there's two, like I just mentioned shortly, but now you can see the shot of it. There's two types of ID that you can go down to. This is considered the order level ID. It's a dragonfly, it's a caddisfly, it's a stonefly, it's a true bug like a water strider, it's a scud, it's a crayfish, right? So you can go to this level identification, and then you can also identify things down to the family level. So each mayfly could be one of 20 different families, right? So obviously that takes quite a bit more study.
Which one is more preferred for the reporting sake?
Well, I don't know if I personally have a preference. Like, certainly at the family level, it means more to a biologist.
I know for a fact though that we make mistakes in identification and family level.
Mm-hmm.
I know we would make a lot less if
Mm-hmm.
we do by order.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we could? Because currently we're doing family level. Could we transition to at an order level? Okay.
Yeah, you could.
I think
Yep.
I'm going to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
I would say, especially if you think you're making a lot of mistakes, I think people would appreciate it being more accurate.
Because we have dichotomous keys, and I'm not an expert, and I'm the one that's.
Well, Renee knows it okay,
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
But she's not looking necessarily at every sample.
No.
Okay. Yep. If you're new, you're starting out, you're definitely on this left-hand side. And I mean, honestly, at least for me, it took a college class. You could do it independently if you were just highly motivated. I was not highly motivated. I was motivated by grades. So that's how I learned. That's how I learned the family side.
I was motivated by paycheck. That was my job.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's effort for sure.
But I would say when I was learning, like I remember when I was a new biologist, I would go out with an experienced biologist. I would think about the ones I couldn't identify, and in the evening at the hotel, I would go through books and like look at different characteristics. How am I gonna remember that one? So it takes work.
Do you have these forms available?
Yeah, these are on the website. I think at some point we'll go on the website and I can show you.
You mentioned books. Do you have any particular books that you like?
Yeah, I think there's a list. You have a list, right? On the resources.
Yeah.
There's a list on the resources.
All right, we're gonna summarize what we've talked about so far, and then we are going to take a bathroom break. Okay, so we talked a lot about how different groups do different things. So this kind of summarizes it. So these are different things that every group does. Some groups use 2 collectors. Some group uses 1 collectors. Some groups like kick screens. Kick screens are like these window screening on sticks. And they're really good for riffle areas. You go behind it, you kick up the sediment, and it gets a ton of insects. You can use those if you want. There's no reason you can't if you have one. People use different sizes of white trays. That's fine. We talked about this a lot. You can pick on the bank, or you can put everything in a bucket and pick later. When ID happens, I highly recommend you do it after the event, but there's no rule saying you can't do it right away. What level you're identifying things at, order level or family level, and there's a different data sheet depending on what you decide to do. And then the very first choice we talked about: do we collect everything on a single day with a big group of people that I'm sending out to different locations, or do I send a team here, a team there, but all together you get it done within a 2-week time frame? So those are decisions that you guys can make. However, some things in my core to maintain statewide consistency that we all do the same. We need to give collectors a field training or at least a practice session before they're officially collectors. Total collection effort should be 35 to 45 minutes, no matter how many collectors you have. They are on 300-foot stream sections. Your team picks for about 60 minutes. And then there's these caveats. So if you can stop after you collect 150, keep searching for the full 60 minutes just in case you find new things. All macros must be collected in a 2-week window that is similar year after year. Don't do your official IDs out in the field. Kill the specimens in alcohol. ID them in a controlled setting with an expert. Keep the specimens for 5 years. And then you have to fully decontaminate your gear if going to more than one site in a day, and clean it thoroughly at the end of the day. So these are the things that we're telling Eagle that we're doing, so that when Eagle biologists look at the data, they have a very good sense of what you did to collect that data. Okay, any questions?